All right, good evening and welcome to Futbol En Vivo on Club Deportes Season 2, Episode 19. We are every week on clubdeportes.com. Follow us on Twitter at Futbol Austin. That is Futbol Austin. Follow Club Deportes at Club Deportes. For all the latest and greatest sports news and commentary, well, you have to go to the only website on the internet that still believes in Emiliano Rigoni. That's clubdeportes.com. I am your host, Eric McCoy, and I am joined by a man who wishes Austin FC could play FC Dallas and the Houston Dynamo every single week. It's Jorge Chavez.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Yeah,
that would be ideal, right?
Yes, it would be ideal. So.
Yeah, the Copa Tejas standings, they look great
They look really good right now.
MLS standings not looking too bad.
It's not bad either, yeah.
Things are looking up, but certainly Copa Tejas, very, very nice these days.
Right.
But, Jorge, we had two matches last week, two Copa Tejas matches.
Yep.
Two Austin FC 3-0 victories. I think it's safe to say Texas is Verde, man.
Texas is Verde, indeed. And it's
irrefutable.
And I think it's the first time that we saw the same lineup on two consecutive games.
Yes.
Which is
not
great, except that we'll talk about it later, that one of those is gone now. one of those players is gone now.
Yes.
And he probably played his best two games, unfortunately. So he went out with a bang. We're talking about Radovanovic. We wish him well. There was some speculation that his wife in particular wanted to go back to Europe, and that ended up being one of the deciding factors. So he's not there anymore. But boy, he had a heck of a game.
Oh yeah. I think literally right before the halftime, he was subbed off at the half, but he had a couple of really great blocks, really epic
Pumped
stuff.
Up the crowd. I mean, it was quite a sending off party. Put it that way. Yeah.
Most definitely. Okay, so we're going to get into the action this week. Real quick, before we do, Jorge,
yes.
You have a nice little
outfit.
Ensemble right there. So could you explain wanted to
explain the audience. It's a little tribute for all you Mexican fans and really Latin American fans. You'll recognize the hat a little bit. That it's the one that character by the name of Don Ramon used to use in a famous almost world famous a show called Chavo del Ocho. And that particular character, Don Ramon, was a big fan of Necaxa, or the Mexican Liga MX. And Necaxa this year decided to honor his fandom with his third kit dedicated to him. And this is the third kit.
That is a beautiful looking
It really
kit
is.
Right there.
It really
nice.
is sharp. If you could... Are those
some of his famous sayings, I guess, on that?
There's a famous saying down here that says, Si serás, which is something that he always mentioned to the main character, was Chavo del Ocho. And if you see here, it's got the DR instead of the regular Necaxa crest. It's a Don Ramon crest.
Oh, nice.
So they beat it last year, and I was anticipating it coming in, but not a fan of Necaxa per se, but... big fan of Don Ramon, absolutely.
Okay, well, I got some homework to do. I got to watch up on this. It sounds like some good stuff. But okay, Jorge, so it was a very, very excellent week for Austin FC. Before we get to the highlights, I just kind of want to ask, this week overall, just in the context of Austin FC's season, which if you watched last week's show, we reported was going quite poorly.
Yes, it was.
Just how significant these two wins is this for Austin FC's season as a whole?
I think it's a big confidence booster. Because in the first game, FC Dallas, all three forwards scored. And in the game against Houston, the two forwards scored. And I think a little bit underappreciated goal by Julio Cascante, who had a bit of a rough week. With some off the field issues. But he got a goal. So of the 6 goals that were scored in these two games, 5 were by forwards. And that's pretty significant.
Something that was lacking, I think,
Yes.
prior to this past week.
Right.
If we can, Jerry, let's go ahead and kick things off with highlights from the most recent of Austin FC's 3-0 wins, the 3-0 win over Houston Saturday at Q2 Stadium.
And we both actually got to see both of these games.
Yes, that was fun,
And-
man. I hadn't been to a game in a little while, so it's nice being in the press box
except for the
with you.
12 o'clock midnight press conferences because of the weather delays.
That
was
if Mother Nature could just hold off during the week. Saturday it's fine, but on a Wednesday night, man, that's a school night.
Yeah,
man.
I had to work the next day too.
Yeah,
so,
same.
But one thing that I did see in this Houston game, they weren't as aggressive as they were of Dallas, but they were methodical. They put the pressure on. They didn't hold back. They didn't pass too much.
Now keep that goal in mind.
Yes.
I'm going to revisit this because I think this is really significant, particularly when we get into some of the Finley versus Rigoni stuff. That goal right there, I think, is really significant.
Yes.
It's just how it was scored, not necessarily just who scored it, but how exactly it was scored. What a ball here from
he knows exactly where to place the ball.
With a little flick from Zardes, too.
And I think, to be honest, I think Driussi was probably targeting Zardes because that's where it went to first. But it looks like the defender got in the way a little bit of the trajectory, but it fell right to Finley.
Oh yeah, and that's such a great run from Finley there.
And they did check VAR, and but before Driussi made that pass, Finley was onside, so there was no call. And like I said, it did appear that it went off the defender. If it would have gone off Driussi, it would have been offside. So I think that's what they checked. Mm-hmm. And so technically, Driussi kind of had an assist on that one. But this one was definitely a Driussi assist.
Oh yeah, and great stuff. It's so nice to see these two. I think really starting to hone their chemistry together.
Right. Yeah, and it took a little while because Driussi was injured, so obviously that had to be delayed a little bit. But if he had not been injured, I think we would have seen this chemistry a month earlier. At least 8 games before, we would have seen this chemistry already. And sure enough, I mean,
I think you're right, and I think to some degree, perhaps here's Ache doing his thing right here,
and there's Rado in the way.
There it is. Look at that, so great. This sequence was amazing.
Oh, that was an amazing sequence, yeah.
But I think to some degree, perhaps us as media, us as fans, even I think maybe have been a little dismissive of just how serious the injuries have been to this team, and just what effect that has had on the team. And their struggles for much of the first half of the season.
And I think one of the underrated things about these past 2 games is the clean sheets. Mm-hmm. Like we said, Radovanovic, even though he had basically a shoulder separation, he played lights out in the last 2 games. Cascante was Cascante, so he was solid, and the 2 wings played as they must. But now, with a transfer window coming up in July 7th, if I'm not mistaken.
I know it's July, the exact date, but
something,
it should be very soon.
Cornerback is in need again. And I think this also gave the defense a confidence booster because to be honest, I don't think either team attacked as much as they would have liked.
Yeah, Houston were particularly kind of docile.
They were docile. It was a little surprising. Yeah. They got a little aggressive towards the end, especially with Herrera.
A little too late, down 3-0.
But it was too late.
Yeah, Stuver I think made a pretty excellent save towards the end.
Yeah, I think was it this one or one from? No, it was another one that he put over the bar on the free kick. But yeah, I mean they were paying attention to every shot that had was going into their area, and it was a similar performance. I think unfortunately for the past few games, like we said before, they weren't really blown out in any game. They were really in the thick of all the games, but just the defensive, there was no offense to speak of.
Yes.
So you can't win games if you don't score goals.
A problem.
Which is a problem.
Fair to say.
But I think that unit finally clicked for Austin FC. And the defense finally held its own. And I think that this is the result. This is what we are expecting all season long, really.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, this definitely looked much more 2022 vintage Austin FC than 2023, at least what we've seen thus far in 2023. I do have to ask.
Yes.
The opponents in these games, this one that we just saw, Houston Dynamo, and then the game against FC Dallas, this was obviously, like FC Dallas in particular, a very heavily rotated FC Dallas team. This Houston Dynamo team that are not good away from home. They've only won once away from home this season. Should we temper our enthusiasm a bit just based on who these wins were against, or who cares, 2-3-0 wins, this team is rolling?
If both teams would have been depleted, yeah. But so the FC Dallas game, I mean, they were missing Jesus Ferreira, who was off in the Gold Cup. They were missing Paul McCoy, who was injured, I think.
No Paul Arriola.
No Paul Arriola, no Leggett. So basically their best players were not on the field. And it showed. There was very, very little attack from FC Dallas. So you kind of expected something like that. But Houston, no. They had their guys.
That was the same lineup that they sent out
same lineup.
midweek in a very impressive 4-1 win over San Jose.
Yes, and it just did not produce. I don't know if it was the defensive scheme that Austin FC produced or put out there, or they were just tired. I mean, the heat.
They look like a very
factors.
tired team, and they look like they had come there to essentially kind of park the bus and steal a goal on the counterattack.
It looks like that was the attempt. That's what they wanted to do.
When Austin FC scored in the 22nd minute,
that
they
went
kind
out
of blew
the
up.
window.
Yeah, they went out that window.
Yeah,
so,
went out
they
the
couldn't
window.
exactly execute that. So I think one of the key stories, let's start with some, it's going to be mostly positive, but I think the biggest positive for me is Giassi Zardes.
Yes.
He scored against Dallas and he scored against Houston.
Right.
And if you look over his last seven appearances, he has 5 goals in his last 7
I think
appearances.
he's found his stride.
Okay, that's exactly what I was about to ask.
Yep.
Is it fair to say he has finally arrived here for Austin FC?
Yes. And I think, and it's something that we've been talking about pretty much all season. Who started next to him? Finley. Finley started next to him, and they seem to be able to feed off each other very, very well, and it showed this time around.
That is particularly against Houston. One of the things I was watching, especially that first 20-25 minutes, was just the movement of Austin FC's attackers in the final third, and it was just so in sync. Like, Zardes would drop, and then Finley would look to run in behind. Or you'd have like Owen Wolf pushing up and then Zardes pulling out wide. And it was just, he looked so comfortable in this system. So it's not, the goals are awesome. And you're a striker, you're going to ultimately be judged on your goals.
by how many goals you
But
score.
Just the overall play was outstanding. There was a moment, we all kind of noticed it in the press box, I think towards some point, midpoint second half, he actually runs up behind a Houston Dynamo midfielder and just snatches the ball right off of him. Right. And that's just a player I think that is just buzzing with confidence. And it is just so comfortable in this system. And so, just complete all around, so impressive from Giassi these 2 matches.
Right, yeah. I don't anticipate him getting any rest from now on. I think he finally found a hot hand.
He's the number one striker.
He's the number one striker. Yeah. I think Guruti, honestly, he should have had a couple of he had really good shots on goal against Houston. Didn't really do all that much against Houston. Reverse. He had good shots against Dallas, and they were there for the taking, the goals, and he just didn't go in for them in that occasion. But I think he's better suited for that kind of play as a substitute.
Absolutely, that is, you could do far worse as a super sub than Maxi Urruti, most certainly. But I think it is so important for this team. I think until he moves on, retires, whatever. Sebastian Driussi is the primary goal scorer on this Austin FC team.
Absolutely.
He is the hub of Austin FC in the attacking third. But you need to have a counterpoint.
Yeah.
And in the first half of 2022, Maxi Urruti was an excellent counterpoint to Driussi.
Yeah.
After that brace against LAFC on that wonderful, glorious Friday night win at Q2, Urruti really cooled off for the second half of that season. I don't think Austin FC's attack was really ever quite the same after that. And Urruti, he just hasn't had the goal-scoring form for most of this season either.
Right.
And neither has anyone else, John Gallagher.
Right.
Until recently, Zardes showing up. And if he can continue this form, Driussi's back. This attack looks really dangerous.
Yeah, that opens up Driussi's confidence, and it's something that we'll see because he actually came out for the player interviews.
Yeah, do you want to listen to that now?
Yeah, let's if Jerry has that punched up there. It was an interesting quote by. I asked him a question if he felt more comfortable with Owen Wolff and Danny Pereira next to him, and he pretty much confirmed it.
Okay, let's hear it.
Parece que al jugar al lado de los jóvenes de Wolff y Pereira te ha ayudado más, tenido confianza en ellos porque parece que tú has puesto más al frente a ellos. ¿Qué tal la confianza que tienes de esos jugadores?
Bueno, es el futuro del club. Creo que son dos jóvenes que lo están haciendo de la mejor manera, los dos con la selección. Los dos acá creo que están teniendo un rendimiento muy bueno, tanto Dani como Owen. Y eso en el medio campo, tanto a mí como a los demás jugadores, lo ayuda muchísimo, porque son jugadores que juegan muy bien con la pelota, que corren muchísimo, le meten muchísima dinámica al juego que nosotros pretendemos, entonces eso para nosotros es muy bueno.
¿Puedes hablar un
Yeah, if for those of you that didn't understand, I asked him what he thought of the young players, Wolff and Pereira next to him. How confident is he now more as the season has progressed? And he basically said, they're dynamic players. They're the future of the team.
The future of that's high praise.
If we've heard rumors that one or both could be moving on, but
yes.
If Driussi thinks that they should stay, I don't disagree. But he said that they're very dynamic players, and it not only gives him confidence in moving forward, he gives the rest of the offense confidence because they're very fast players. They run a lot, and so I think both of them have gained the confidence of the offensive side of the ball, and that gives all three forwards and Driussi some confidence. And I think it's shown in the last two games. Obviously, Pereira just came back from a stint in the national team for Venezuela. Owen came back from the under-20s. So they've got quality there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I like that you bring up their recent international adventures that they had just gone on. Because I think that they have come back just oozing with confidence, those two players. I mean, they just look – I think they were so integral to Austin FC over these two matches.
Yes.
I just want to highlight Danny Pereira, his numbers against Houston. He had such a fantastic game. He had an assist, had 2 chances created, 93% pass completion, which I think prior to this season, when I would think of Danny Pereira, I would think of his work on the ball as a dribbler, kind of slaloming past defenders. Right. And he still has that.
Yes.
Now I think he's added a dynamic passing game to his arsenal as well. He was 2 for 2 on crosses and 5 for 5 on long passes. He is really, I'm going to say a very prestigious name right here, but it's Pirlo-esque, man. Andrea Pirlo-esque. Some of these long passes he's sending out from that regista position.
Yeah, because they're not hopeful passes. They're accurate.
Yeah, exactly. They're long passes, not long balls.
No, exactly well said. I mean, they're not hopeful that let's see what happens. No, they have trajectory to these things, and so I think the players, like Driussi said, feel a lot more comfortable with those two guys where they are, and that's just going to build their confidence. It's just going to build on each other, and it can be nothing but good news from here on forward.
Absolutely. Hey, if they're good enough for Driussi, they're good enough for me.
Oh yeah,
I do want to ask. I've just praised Pereira, but I want to talk about Owen for a second here. Do you think maybe, I'm going to say we, and I don't necessarily mean just us, I mean kind of like the Austin FC media fan base collective as a whole, do you think maybe we underappreciated just how good of a player Owen Wolff is?
I think it's a little bit of the Bradley effect.
That's exactly where I was going to go with that.
And Bob Bradley just got fired today from Toronto FC, by the way.
Breaking news.
That was kind of interesting, but because it's a U.S. fan base that's very, nepotism is a bad word around here, and so
a lot of different levels.
And so there was a lot of accusations of nepotism about Owen Wolff starting. First of all, he basically took Alex Rings' position at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, which was
and so that was
quite a grenade Wolf threw.
That was quite a grenade.
On
but
the first match.
But I mean, if you had to pick between Pereira, Wolf, and Ring, understandably now it's a hard decision to make.
It is.
And I think Coach Wolf went with the speed that Wolf and that Owen and Pereira can provide. But yeah, I mean the fan base, we just didn't know. I mean, none of us are really privy to what goes on in practices and what the practice,
as Wolf loves to point out,
what the technical staff looks at. They see things differently than we do, and so they have more intimate knowledge of their abilities, of their health, of different things that the players can provide, and obviously a lot of us didn't see that that maturity or that playability for Wolf until they got called up regular to the under-20s. That's when somebody else saw the talent, not just the Austin FC staff, not just his dad, if you will.
Yeah, because this is a U.S. U20 international doing big things on the international. That team went to the quarterfinals of the U20 World Cup that just happened recently.
Right.
I think changed the last name on the jersey. This is a player that I think the fan base is just absolutely buzzing about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think maybe now, after this week, the fan base is absolutely buzzing about him. But
Yeah.
it took a while to get to this point.
It did take a while.
Me included. I put myself in this camp
I
as
think
well.
a lot of us questioned the choice of elevating Wolf at such a young age. He really hadn't proved himself yet. But obviously the coaching staff, because let's face it, it's not just Owen Wolf that makes decisions. It's everybody else. They don't have just one guy making all the decisions. I'm sure it's a collective. And if the leadership for Austin is the leadership council that they call, which is some of the players that have the loudest voices, if they wouldn't have approved, you would have heard about it. And on the contrary, they're very supportive of this of Owen and praising him, just like Drusi did right now. So I think it bodes well again to not only Wolf's confidence, but Pereira's confidence as well, because their talent is being seen by other coaching staffs, in this case, the Venezuela national team and the under-20 national team. So I think that gives both of them validation that they belong where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get into this right now because Alex Ring, he is injured, and Wolf was very vague as to when he might be back.
Very vague, which is odd.
You can kind of divide, I think, Saturday's press conference into two parts: the pre-questions concerning Emiliano Rigoni, and then post-questions concerning Emiliano Rigoni.
Yeah.
Ring his injury status was brought up after the Rigoni question, and Wolf was not in a very good mood by that point in the press conference.
Yeah,
he gave a very terse answer.
Yes,
but we do not know the injury status of Alex Ring. Obviously, Radovanovic, as we talked about earlier, he has played his last game for Austin FC. Again, very sad to see him go. Just in terms of the center back situation, I'm thinking as soon as Ring comes back, until Wolf said plates are spinning was the phrase he used.
Spinning, yeah.
As far as Austin FC bringing in a center back, that probably is going to happen for at least another couple weeks, maybe a month. I would assume when Ring comes back, he's going back into the center back role.
Right.
But just in general, just how much do you think Radovanovic is going to be missed in this team?
I think just having a body there is missing. I mean, obviously Leo's still a couple of months behind and away from coming back, which was a very steady presence there as well. But I think they're going to be forced to look for somebody at center back in the transfer window.
Yeah,
somebody that's ready to play immediately to be inserted in there. They can't afford. I mean, for some reason they brought in Adam Lundqvist for a reason. I don't know what that reason is because he hasn't played all that much.
Yeah, they seem to trust him at wingback and pretty much nowhere else. And now they're in a system that isn't utilizing wingbacks. Right. So, it remains to be seen. Just
what I did think was interesting is that they played Keller. He not only made the bench, he played one half, the second half against Dynamo, and a good 20 minutes against Dallas. Of course, they were with Leeds. So that may have played a little bit of a part in the decision to start him. But as David loves to say, there's a script, and I'm sure he was scripted to be in there, and he played well. You know,
I was going to ask, how do you think he performed?
He didn't seem to make any mistakes. He was just kind of bland, which is kind of what you want your defenders to be anyway. Just bland, take care of business.
Paolo Maldini quote. If I made a challenge, I've made a mistake.
Yeah,
already. I have to actually go in for a tackle.
You don't want excitement coming from the center back position.
Yes.
So if that's the criteria, Keller played well. And so is he enough to start again for his confidence? He's played well in Austin FC 2. Played well in these 2 games. I think, unfortunately, he's going to be forced to be more of a presence there for the next month or so until Ring comes back and there's a summer transfer signing. So I don't know. It's hard to say where his mind is at, but
yeah, I will say to kind of complete this circle here, I think the way Owen Wolff played this week makes me more okay with Ring continuing to deputize as a center back.
Yes.
I still don't think Alex Ring, I don't think that's his best position, so definitely bring in a center back as soon as possible. If until Ring comes back, we have to see Kip Keller. I thought Keller was, like you, I think he was mostly fine in his appearances this week. He does have a tendency, I think, to kind of get dragged out of position a bit. He's very much like a ball chaser, if he's on an attacking player and that attacking player drops, he is like stuck to him like glue, and that's not always a great thing because I think it throws Austin FC's defensive shape out of alignment. I think that needs to be worked on a bit, but the raw skill is there, and if he has to start for a couple of matches, Inter Miami is the next match. Messi will not play. Inter Miami are very, very bad.
Very, very bad. They're probably the worst team in MLS right now.
So this may, if you're going to have to start Keller for a match,
that would be ideal.
That would probably be the one to start him in. So, I'm mostly fine. But certainly, as soon as possible, let's get some center back reinforcements in. And I think it needs to be someone who's, like, in season, already fit, that you can just kind of plug and play. I don't want this, 2-month, he's got to get up to fitness, he's got to learn the system. No, this guy needs to be ready to roll,
right?
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody from Europe. I mean, it could be somebody from the Mexican League. Some of the Latin American teams are either in hiatus or they just started their season, so they've got a lot of players have had their rests coming up, and so they're probably a little bit fresh. So whoever they bring in, first of all, I think it's unanimous from the fan base and from the media. It's got to be a center back. I think because of the front 3 have kind of cemented their status. They have some momentum going. So Zardes and Finley and Fagundes are not going to change. They're going to stay right where they're at. Owen Wolff, Pereira and Driussi are going to stay right where they're at. So it's pretty obvious that they need to spruce up that cornerback. Even a couple of cornerbacks, I wouldn't put it past them. Yeah,
because I still, it doesn't seem like we're ever going to see Alvaro Tarak again. I don't know where his whereabouts remains.
He was asked about that in the press conference. Josh Wolff was, and that was he's practicing. And that's pretty much
there are certain names that seem to trigger Josh Wolff. Yeah, and Alvaro Tarak is one that just kind of, when he hears that name being asked about, he gets a little furrows the brow.
A little bit. Yeah.
Doesn't look too happy.
And the other one that does that.
Now, okay, we're going to get into that just one quick second because I do want to talk about Wolff in general, because on last week's show we did a little mid-season review report card kind of segment. We did not give Josh Wolff a particularly good grade for how he has done up to the midpoint of the season,
which is probably explains a lot.
If he was watching, that might explain a few things about how we were greeted at this press conference. But these 2 matches, Jorge, have they changed your assessment of the coaching job Josh Wolff has done this season? I should be clear. Neither one of us were Wolff out
Not
last
necessarily.
week. Not necessarily.
No.
We were not that far off the deep end.
I mean, we gave not credit, but we understood the dynamic of how difficult it is to put a lineup if you get one injury after another to different parts of your squad. I mean, that's a lot of balls to put up.
Exactly.
Juggling, so.
Exactly. A lot of spinning plates.
A lot of spinning plates, as you would say. Yes. So we weren't necessarily Wolf out, but I think we criticized some of the substitutions, and I think we're still criticizing some of the substitutions that we'll get into in a bit as well. But it helps to have some stability in your starting lineup and some health in your starting lineup. I think
you can't have stability without the health.
Right. You have to have one with the other. They're locked tight. But I think in particular, Diego Fagundes.
Yes.
He looked like a different type of player. I think out of all the players, he benefited the most from this international break. Just getting away from the practice field, just getting healthy again. And he looked really good. He did really good in these past 2 games. And I think he finally found his stride as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very good shout. That to me, it was kind of why my overall assessment of Wolf might be changing a bit, because I was really, one of the things that I think I've been most critical of Wolf this season was how he handled the Diego Fagundes situation.
Right.
He was critical of him in press conference, called him out by name, called out his contract, and I just thought this is a disaster.
Yeah.
How are you calling out, the heartbeat of the team?
Pretty much
like that.
Yeah.
Now, and Diego, his performances he looked like a player lost, right? And I know it was fitness issues, whatever it may be, but it to me, from what I could see from my very far away vantage point of the press box or on TV, it was like, this is just a player that looks broken. And I was kind of attributing Wolf's criticism in the press conferences as leading to some of that.
Right.
But now that Diego he seems to be returning to his
form,
his best self, it's like, okay, was that maybe some like 40 chess motivational tactic? Is this how he was going to reach Diego, motivate him to get back into shape, get back into fitness, get back to the Diego that we all know and love?
Right.
And so, I don't know, maybe I take what he said as far as a criticism of Diego, maybe a little less, I view it a little less harshly than what I did just 1 week prior.
Right. And I don't think Diego Fagundes has been a professional for a long time. So, and he's seen different coaches and different tactics of how to motivate him. So I don't think Josh's observances of his play or his comments really affected him all that much. I think he's much more self-critical of what he can and cannot do. So I don't think that was the issue. I think I think it was just a resting issue. I think it was just I need a couple of weeks just of no games and just hanging out and having my knees and my thighs and everything else in place. And this is the result. So I mean, that could have played a bit Josh Wolf's criticism or comment on that player, but I hope that's not the case, because like you said, he's a heartbeat he doesn't need motivation like that. He's not a young player. So hopefully, I mean, it looks like things turned around. I don't think Josh Wolf's going to criticize him anymore.
If he keeps playing like this, he's not going to have any reason to criticize.
He's not going to have a reason to. So hopefully it'll be a motivating factor.
Yes.
For him.
Most definitely. So I do think that, I was critical of the decision to go away from the 3-4-3 that was working so well. We just saw Austin FC play kind of a 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2 kind of shape, and they looked awesome.
Yes.
So, okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't need the 3-4-3 anymore.
Yeah.
So some of those types of things, I think, again, as facts change, opinions should change.
Right.
And so D+, he might be moving up into the C+ territory.
Yeah, he's probably a good step up to a C+ maybe. But again, I mean, it has to do a lot with the health of the players and the stability. Pretty much everybody knows where they're going to play game in, game out, and I think that stability kind of calms the players down. They're not gonna wonder, oh, am I going to start? Am I not going to start?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I as we were going to go into the press conference discussion, I love that our beloved boss here, Jorge, one of the first things he said whenever he got on the microphone in the press conference was, I was so happy to see the same lineup 2 matches in a row.
Yeah, he did say that.
And I wholeheartedly agree. with our boss on that one. Okay, so the press conference, it was a very interesting thing. We're going to get to a video here. Jerry's going to pull up a video in just a second. Before we get to that video, though, I want to ask you your thoughts on the subject of much controversy from the press conference. That is the Ethan Finley versus Emiliano Rigoni debate. If you've watched Austin FC this week, you will have noticed that Rigoni did not start. Ethan Finley started both matches, 2 goals, 1 assist. And if you want to know Austin FC's record in the 4 matches that Emiliano Rigoni hasn't started this season, well, let me tell you, 4 wins, 0 draws, 0 defeats. Perfect 100%. Jorge, just how do you see this situation going forward? Ethan Finley has to start for the foreseeable future, right?
He does, because as much as we've kind of praised the chemistry that has been building up between Driussi and Zardes, it has not between Emiliano Rigoni and Zardes.
And literally anyone else.
Or anybody else on the team. We thought that maybe with Urruti, because they're both Argentinians, and that would develop. It has not. It's something that we have been harping on in this show for a while now, to have regular starters for Finley and Driussi. And if Urruti's going to start, put Rigoni in there. If he's not going to start, if Zardes is going to start, put Finley, because it seems that they are playing well, next to each other. And these past 2 games are proof of that, because they both scored. And so it's interesting that, because just before we talked about his criticism of Wolf's criticism of or commenting on Diego Fagundes' contract, his play, and that he does not do that for Rigoni.
No.
At all. So if he was trying to motivate Diego using that, was Wolf motivating Rigoni by sitting him?
It's interesting. Wolf and this
we
40
didn't
chest.
We didn't get to ask him that. By the way,
I don't think he would have.
We would have answered that badly. Yes.
But that is interesting. I know from some of the coaching wisdom, psychology type stuff that I've read. Good coaches will have different ways of treating different players. Some players, when they're struggling, they do need like a kick up the backside to try and motivate them to get them going. Other players, you got to put an arm around their shoulder and say, hey, I still believe in you, that kind of thing. And good coaches kind of know that. And hey, maybe Wolf thinks Fagundes is a guy that does need that bit of that tough love, whereas Rigoni, in his fragile ego, perhaps needs to be. I don't want to be too critical of Rigoni. I don't know much about Rigoni's ego, but maybe that's him, and he does need a bit of an arm around the shoulder kind of thing to help him along. But without further ado, let's get to this press card. We've got some footage here. Jerry's about to pull up, because this was an interesting.
This was an interesting one, yeah.
All right, I think
from a bit of an unlikely source, by the way.
Yes, indeed.
Our friend Adam.
Yeah, Adam. The Ribbinator.
The Ribbinator. He was on.
He was ribbinating. That is for sure.
Yeah, and again, much appreciation to the fans. It's I think this week was a big week. It was Copa Tejas times 2 against 2 good opponents, and there are no easy games in this league. But the result on Wednesday night was validated with a very strong performance again tonight. I thought the guys performed extremely well. 2 shutout wins at home against your in-state rivals. I think certainly answers some questions that we've received the last few weeks, but we still got a ways to go. It was a strong performance from a number of guys, and really pleased with the contributions. I think we've seen this coming for a while. The goals haven't been there to help validate some of the work, but set pieces, we continue to be beast. And again, the validation comes through the actual taking those chances and run a play. I thought the tempo was slow. I think you had 2 teams that obviously could feel the 100+ heat over the last 2 games. But as the game went on, I think we had quite good control of the game at both ends of the field, and really pleased to grab 6 points and again keep moving up the standings and getting shutouts at home.
Congrats on the win, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, just maybe a less spicy question about the Finley Rigoni debate. Just in terms of Finley, just what is he bringing to the attack in the final third? Like specifically, what is he offering your team?
Well, just production. I think he works extremely hard. He's got good understanding of what we're trying to do. Arriving in the box when opportunities come, you take them. I think Emmy's in a similar space. He's had plenty of opportunities. He doesn't take them. They affect, obviously, a player's confidence, a team's confidence to some degree at times, and obviously the space that you guys live in, it becomes a lightning rod. But these guys they're professionals. They got to keep performing, and we as coaches have to keep supporting them. We get to see these guys train every day, work every day. We know what's going on in their lives that you guys don't truly know. So we try to keep it quite harmonious. And, the last thing that I try to do is allow that noise inside our group. And it's inevitable. It's part of sports. But, we try to handle our business and keep most of our stuff inside. And that's just the way I choose to do it.
Yeah,
Josh Wolf, Futbol En Vivo viewer, perhaps, right? I mean,
unfortunately, we didn't see Adam's question, but he's sort of one that started with a question of Rigoni to see, he didn't start, he didn't do much in the last few games, and he was sat down, and it looks like Wolf took offense to that.
Wolf took, I think, genuine offense to that. Yes.
That was a question maybe expected from Jorge Duralde,
which he did get it from Iturralde as well.
Yeah, he did get it after that, but he asked, put it in perspective, all the money that he's getting and the production that he's not. Wolf said it right there.
He acknowledged the production's not
there's
been
some
there.
shots that Rigoni has not taken, but even when he is given opportunities, one prime example, I think it was in the Houston game, if I'm not mistaken. He had a breakaway.
I think that was against FC Dallas.
Was FC Dallas game? Okay,
Dallas,
there was a breakaway. Mm-hmm. Basically, he got ahead of everybody. Rigoni's lightning speed. There was just one Dallas defender, and there were three Austin FC.
I think maybe 4 or 5. That was quite a few.
At least 3. There was like a swarm of green.
Yes.
Right next to him. And what does he do? He passes it to the only defender in the box. Where's the quality?
There was audible groans in the press box.
Even the Austin FC players that were just chomping at the bit to receive that ball, and just to see it go away innocently through the defender, I said, "Oh my God, that has got to shoot not only Rigoni's confidence, but the players as well." I mean, when you have such a golden opportunity, and sure, they were up 3-0 already, and it was a depleted FC Dallas team, sure, but that opportunity just encapsulates what Rigoni's stay here at Austin has been. It's just, you see it almost, and then just nothing happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have quite a few thoughts on this. I think to get to kind of the kind of the spikiness from Wolf there in this press conference. I mean, this is what we see. Like, we see the performances on the field, and like, they haven't been good enough. He said himself, the production hasn't been there. Yes, we don't see training every week. We don't know what's going on.
We don't know what
Emiliano's
in
personal
their
life.
head
We have
or whatever.
No idea. So either you tell us like what's going on in training, like what is he doing in training that's so magnificent that we should understand why you're starting him every game whenever he's started. The 4 times he didn't start, us FC have won.
Yeah.
Tell us what is so great about what he's doing in the press conference, or maybe not be so offended when people dare to criticize him in the press conference.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are professionals, and so I'm sure they're used to this kind of criticism.
Oh, absolutely.
But they're not in Argentina, they're not in Europe, so we're not hounding them.
And Rigoni has played in both South America and Europe.
Yes, so the media here, especially the soccer media, and even in most of the country, is not very what's the word I want to say? Very intrusive, put it that way. They're not in your face. This isn't New York or LA even,
absolutely not.
So, where they basically just are hostile towards the players, any team. But so the soccer community, soccer media, in fact, are more complimentary, more observant, because it's kind of an issue that us in the press have kind of fought with, is that supposedly MLS is supposed to allow press into the locker room to interview whoever we want. One thing, we're not allowed. Austin FC media is not allowed in the lockers, and two, we have to ask Austin FC Communications who we want to interview, and sometimes we get the players that we ask for, but mostly we don't.
Most of the time, no, because we want to talk to Zardes right after this.
And they gave us Rigoni, which is fine.
Great.
But they're not going to give us Rigoni. No. I don't think anybody's going to want to, ask him anything. But they always provide Stuver, which is great.
Love Brad.
He's a great guy. He answers, honestly and directly. But there's 20 other guys in the team. I mean, there's 9 other starters that we would love to get interviews with, or some of us would like to talk to Nick Lima. Some of us would want to talk to Cascante, especially this week.
Yeah, he had a very trying week.
And so, but we're not allowed to do that. So we don't get to know these players. We don't get to know how it affects them.
You're really getting at, I think, the key to this issue right here. The press conference, these interactions between coaches, players, and media, this is how you tell your story. Otherwise, we make up what we want to make up.
We go by
you don't tell us otherwise.
We go by what we see on the field.
Exactly.
And we don't know if Rigoni has issues, his family has problems. We don't know any of that.
No
we just
idea.
see Rigoni's play on the field, and it's terrible. But why is it terrible? Wolf keeps saying that he practices great. Practices are great. The guys get together great. There's Mateo con Vos that came out.
Yes.
They have their asadas. But that's because we get to observe that controlled view of these players. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about Austin FC Communications, but they're very controlling, very protective of their players. So we don't get to know these guys at all. And so we don't know. We won't get to know. I'm not sure if this is the same way in other MLS locker rooms or press conferences, but there's a lot of interest in these players. And when we don't give the fans access to them, we have to come up with something.
That's exactly it, right? If you don't like the narrative that we're spinning based on what we can see, tell us something different. Give us an alternative narrative that we can follow. Otherwise, we got to talk about this team for an hour every week. We got to talk about something. If they're not playing well,
Right.
It can't be like, oh, that wasn't great, but we don't know what's going on. It could be something going on in personal life, or that he did this run well here, and so we should consider overall this wasn't bad. But if you don't let us know what's going on, if you don't explain to us like what he's doing in training that's so great, what anyone is doing in training that's so great, or how great these guys are getting along, or how we're just this far off because of this and that or whatever. Like, we have to come up with stuff on our own, and you may not like what we come up with because
and
what else do we have to go on?
And let's be fair, it's probably wrong. We really
Absolutely.
we really don't know what's going on.
I'm
with these
wrong
guys.
all the time. 100% wrong all the time.
And I mean, one of the things that kind of opened up my eyes to that a little bit is when we had where we were for once allowed to talk with Rodney Zardes, and just an innocent question that came out of that is the passing away of his grandmother in Paraguay, and he couldn't go to the funeral. I'm sure that affected him because he saw. We don't even know if it was his paternal or fraternal grandmother, but it affected either his mom or his dad, which affected him obviously and his family. So that probably either motivated him to play better, or was a drawback in practice because his mind was elsewhere. His mind was off in South America, but we don't know that. We just happen to know what happened when one of us asked an innocent little question, and he just threw that in there, and so we don't get to know these kinds of things because we don't get to go into the locker room.
Yeah.
I know it's a sacred place. I know that they're very protective of those guys, but come on.
Now here's the thing: like you can't have it both ways, right? You either can allow a bit more access and disclose a bit more information, or you can continue down this path. But then you can't also get mad about what we're saying when we're trying to fill in the gaps in the narrative. Like
because that's exactly what we're doing. We're filling in gaps.
Exactly.
I mean,
what else do we have to do?
What else we have to do? I mean, we could talk about tactics, but to talk about tactics, we have to talk about the players. What most motivates them, what's ailing them, where are they?
All of
what
it pieces.
Situation are they in?
They're pieces of a much larger puzzle. All of this stuff.
Right.
But yeah, maybe like if Austin, if you don't care like what we have to say, great, that's fine. If I was on Austin FC, I wouldn't care what someone like me had to say either.
Yeah,
but you can't get.
We're
a
bunch of schmucks that don't know anything.
You can't get mad about what people are saying when you're not giving them anything else to say. Really.
But what was interesting about Wolf's spiciness is I found it a little validating that he says he doesn't care, but he still mentioned it. So he knows what he says, I want to protect the players from that kind of silliness or whatever, which means at least Josh Wolf watches Futbol En Vivo.
One of like the 200 people
FC
that watch
TV.
Incredible.
He probably watches We Are Austin TV. He pays attention to False Nine and The Striker and all these media.
I mean, this is the guy that laminated preseason predictions.
He laminated preseason predictions last year.
He didn't just like hold up a screenshot on his phone. He actually went to the trouble of getting a printer and laminating the predictions.
Yes, so he knows what's up. He knows what's going on. But at the same time, I mean, we're not being critical of people.
No, I would never criticize a player.
We would never.
Personally.
I mean, Rigoni, I'm sure, is a great guy. He's a great teammate, great friend. It's nothing. It's not about attacking a guy. It's about attacking the tactics. It's about criticizing the play, the motivation, even. But again, that's how we got. That's how we can really. We really should do. I mean, we don't want to. We don't want to criticize anybody for their personal decisions or whatever. But at the same time, we don't know them. We don't.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think this is a really fascinating conversation because I think it really gets into like what our role is as media and how that relates to what the team is trying to do and just how these narratives kind of get shaped. And yeah, I mean, and maybe Wolf, maybe he doesn't really care and he's kind of has these moments where he acts like he cares to try to as a motivational tactic. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know, but yeah, all this is very interesting. I want to just quickly kind of, on this same topic of Finley versus Rigoni, kind of shift the conversation away from the press conference and back to the actual on the pitch action.
Yeah.
Ethan Finley, earlier in the show, I said, remember that goal, the first goal against Houston. Remember it because I'm going to bring it up later, and now I'm going to bring it up.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a really excellent book called Pep Confidential. It's by Marty Perinow. I probably butchered that last name, but Marty. He wrote a very nice book where basically he had incredible access with Pep Guardiola during Pep's first season as coach at Bayern Munich. It's a fascinating season. You get in-depth right from like preseason training all the way through the season. And there's just so much good stuff in that book. So I encourage anyone that hasn't read it to go seek it out. It's fantastic. Now, there's a quote from Pep Guardiola in that book where he's kind of discussing his philosophy on team sports. And I love this quote right here. It says, in all team sports, the secret is to overload one side of the pitch so that the opponent must tilt its own defense to cope. You overload on one side and draw them in, so you leave the other side weak. And if you look at that goal right there, you had Austin FC overloading that left side, dragging Houston over there with them on that left side, leaving that right side weak, which then allowed Ethan Finley to run in behind against a less than stellar, less than equipped Houston defense to deal with that run. And it was just textbook exactly what Guardiola is talking about here. Now, I'm not going to say Josh Wolf is Pep Guardiola, but they both adhere to like the positional play philosophy. And I think Wolf, I mean, that was just textbook positional play. Draw the opponent to one side, attack that weak side. And so I kind of started thinking about the difference between Finley and Rigoni as players. And I want to not, for a second, I want people to just kind of forget about what they think of just like the overall quality, of those players. And just think about the profile of those players. How do they each approach playing the game? And on my Twitter feed over the weekend, there was a really interesting clip that popped up of Vincent Kompany. He's the coach of Burnley right now, former Manchester City player, played for Belgium as well, Belgium, which I guess is why he was talking about both Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard. He was doing an interview with Gary Neville, and he was comparing these two. And it was interesting. Talking about Kevin De Bruyne, he said, give Kevin De Bruyne a plan, and he can have the picture in his mind before he even gets the ball. So this is Kevin De Bruyne, obviously excelling under Pep Guardiola in that positional play, very structured, very organized type of system. And so in this little scenario, I'm going to compare Finley to Kevin De Bruyne. Again, not talking about the overall quality of the players. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne a few notches ahead of Ethan Finley. But players that I think understand a system and understand their role within the system really, really well. Now, speaking about Eden Hazard, Kompany says, give Hazard chaos, no organization, no structure, and nobody's better than him. So this is kind of the opposite. This is a player that doesn't want that structure, more of an individualist, right?
Right.
And in this example, Eden Hazard is one of my favorite players of all time, so it pains me to say. In this example, I am comparing Emiliano Rigoni to Eden Hazard, but I think you have a player in Rigoni who is very much, less thinking about the system, more would thrive on those individual moments where you can kind of flash that skill. And so even though, I have my questions about how good of a player he is overall, I just don't think stylistically he is the right player for this system. I think Finley just fits how this team wants to play to a T, whereas Rigoni, I think he would be better suited in a system like Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid. He's not going to play for Real Madrid because he's not good enough.
No.
But that type of system that I think values chaos, values the individual more, allows those players to kind of improvise on the fly a bit more than the very heavily structured system that Wolf has here at Austin FC.
Right. That's a very interesting observation. I think Finley, he knows that he probably can't take players on 1v1.
Yeah.
Or break into, dribble into the box and blow by defenders. But if the field is overflowed on one side and over to the right, and he's on the left, he knows that he can get to the ball. He knows where to be, where the ball is going to be. And with a guy like Driussi, he doesn't even, on the assist he gave to Zardes, he didn't even look up. He just knew that there was going to be.
He knew the ball was
He
coming.
knew that Zardes or somebody was going to be where he threw the ball. So he just finessed it in there, and it found Zardes' head. So same thing with, and that was Driussi on the left side, on the right side, and Zardes was on the right side. And then the reverse happened, and Driussi was now on the left side. He fed it to try to Zardes, but it fell to Finley, and he scored from the left side.
Mm-hmm.
So Driussi is the big factor there, but Finley knows where to be. He knows exactly where to be. Not the flashiest of players, obviously. He'll probably admit it himself. But like Josh Wolf said, he's a hard worker. He's a very productive worker, player. And so, as far as Finley's as far as Rigoni's concerned, he doesn't seem to be fitting into this team anymore.
Yeah, I think
I think he provides a different look, but he can provide that different look from the bench. and even then, he causes a little bit of chaos by what we saw against Dallas, that breakaway.
So the good kind of chaos. That was
a bit of a bad chaos. Sure. It was entertaining.
Yes,
something to see, but I think it'll be a good change of pace to have Driussi, to have Rigoni and Urruti come off the bench at the same time, because I think a lot of defenses will be lulled to sleep a little bit by having a Finley and a Driussi and a Zardes in there for 70 minutes, and then suddenly have these two guys with their chaos, because Urruti isn't exactly a composed player either.
Yeah, but more improvisational.
He's more improvisational, which fits into what Rigoni likes to play. And I think that'd be a good change of pace. It didn't work out in these 2 games, but Urruti was really close to scoring against Dallas. And I think other for that miscue by Rigoni, he probably played a different type of game that now gave both Houston and Dallas pause. They had to change their tactics as well. So if that's the way they want to play, I think Austin fan bases would be fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really to just kind of wrap this up and get a quick prediction, because I think we're just about out of time. But yeah, I think Rigoni, certainly have doubts about just his overall quality. But even having said that, I just think he is not in a system that really plays to his strengths. And I think that is the biggest issue. He is not as bad of a player as he looks to be right now, because I don't think he's in a system that suits what he is good at, like the type of player that he is.
Right.
And so, unfortunately for him, there's a whole bunch of players on this team right now that look to be playing quite well in this system, including Ethan Finley, of course. So, okay, let's real quick before we wrap up here, Austin FC this coming Saturday at Inter Miami. Unfortunately, no Messi. I would love to see Messi take on Austin FC.
That would have been great.
And that would be the next press conference. Would be everyone asking questions about what it was like to go up against Messi. But
and he's off playing testimonials in Argentina right now. So.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. Messi. But yeah, Inter Miami, as of right now, they are just awful.
Oh,
they're
they're
dead
terrible.
last in the East. They're 11 points off of a playoff spot. They have a minus 11 goal differential. They do have Joseph Martinez, but I think it diminished Joseph Martinez from what he was at Atlanta United.
Yeah.
Only 4 goals this season for Joseph Martinez. Most recently, this past weekend, they were demolished 4-1 by Philadelphia. Predictions, Ryan?
I think Austin FC is going to continue their wave. They played well in these past 2 games against 2 very different teams. One was a little bit depleted, so it was expected, but the other one was coming off a really good win, and they got manhandled, to be honest.
Absolutely.
So I think that's going to give both the front 3 and the back 4 confidence going forward. That
how can you not have confidence after a week like this?
Yeah,
Confidence has to be
not only
now.
scoring 3 goals, but drawing blank sheets, a clean slate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'll be too afraid of Inter Miami, so I predict a 2-0 win.
Okay. I like the 3-0s, man. I think we're gonna go 3 straight 3-0 for Austin FC, huh? Because this Miami team is bad. I think Austin FC they look really. I don't think this was a fluke this past week. I think this team has genuinely figured something out. They're healthy in the right areas of the field. Driussi's back. I think Finley's going to start. I think that's great. Zardes is firing again. I mean, this is
and I think they'll be motivated because they're not. This is the standings here as of now.
In a playoff spot, right on the heels of
they're
FC
in the
Dallas.
25th spot, but one win and they're at 28, and suddenly they're in 4th place. From 8th.
This league,
this is
man,
really tight right now.
I think the best thing about MLS and the worst thing about MLS, that you could be absolute garbage for like half a season. You go on like a 3-game winning streak and up you are near the top half of the table.
Yeah, I mean, even looking at the Eastern Conference, DC is at 26 points right now, and if they get a win, suddenly they're in 6th place.
I mean, yeah,
and
life
right now,
comes at you fast in this league.
Yeah, so I think it's good for the parity. There's
You like
nobody
parity.
really
This is
really
league
running
for you.
away. I mean, especially if we see a Cincinnati just running away with the Eastern
We'll probably
Conference
run away
right
with the
now.
Supporter Shield, I think.
Yeah, I think they'll run away with the Supporter Shield as well. But right now they're without Brendan Vasquez, so they could probably they don't really look all that different anyway. They still look very very strong.
Oh yeah, well-oiled machine there. They did have a tough. I think they got beat 3.
They did
by
lose,
DC
yeah.
United, but
So,
they can
but
afford to drop a few points.
they can afford to drop some games here and there. But as far as the Western Conference is concerned, it's very even, and so I think the teams that can get hot right now, rest some guys. I mean, they'll inevitably get better once they get Alex Ring back. Once they get Varsinen back. Once they solidify their cornerback their center back situation. So I think both Zardes and a couple of the players and Wolf himself said, all you need to do is win 3 or 4 games, and you're right smack dab in the middle of a higher side of the playoffs. And that's exactly what they're doing. So they'll be motivated by that, looking at the opportunity to move up in the standings by beating this Inter Miami team that's really bad right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It couldn't be a better time, I think, to get this Inter Miami team.
Yeah, and that would help because the next 2 games after that, they're both also very winnable games. So you could suddenly see an Austin FC team, as bad as we thought they were for most of the season, suddenly get to 3rd or 4th or 3rd or even 2nd place.
Hey, just like we all said, everything's going to be fine. We've been saying that all season. All right, it's been fun, man. We'll do this again next week. Thank you to Club Deportes. Thank you to Jerry Lopez, as always, behind the boards. Thank you to our fans. Thank you to Josh Wolf. Wonderful press conference.
Who watches every
Absolutely
single Austin
Thank you for
Vivo
watching.
show.
We appreciate the support. Thank you. We'll do this again next week.